Allen Ginsberg is a controversial figure of American literature. While he went on to become a heavily bearded mystical figure, he started out as a young American poet in the late 40s. Ginsberg, along with his circle of friends, was part of the Beat generation. These guys were the outsiders of their society, wandering across the country looking for the next adventure to fill up their lives for a few weeks. Later on in the 50s, some of them wrote about their adventures, inspiring some of the younger generation to become beatniks, and the rest is history. The most prominent works from the Beat generation would arguably be Jack Kerouac's semi-autobiographical novel On the Road, as well as Allen Ginsberg's epic poem Howl. I've read both these works, and trust me when I say that they are endlessly fascinating and incredible works of prose and poetry respectively. Coincidentally, both have gained movie adaptations in recent years. While the movie adaptation of On the Road hasn't come out yet, this review is about the film Howl, starring James Franco as Allen Ginsberg. The movie deals with Ginsberg's early life, up to the insane legal case involving the controversial release of Howl in 1955. Not only is there swearing in the poem, but the subject matter outraged the heavily conservative 50s censors. And almost from the beginning, Ginsberg was open about his homosexuality, even in his writing, which of course was another reason the poem brought about an obscenity trial on itself. Ginsberg wasn't involved in the trial, but publisher Lawrence Ferlinghetti was brought in for distributing the poem. In the film, Ferlinghetti is played by Andrew Rogers. The prosecutor is played by a blustering David Strathairn, and the defense attorney is played by John Hamm. The trial seems almost farcical at times, but the dialogue was amazingly taken word for word from the court's original transcripts. The movie basically follows four general storylines. One is, of course, the obscenity trial. Another is Allen Ginsberg being interviewed on his life, and we see James Franco completely disappear into the mysterious character of Allen Ginsberg. We see brief moments of his friendship with Jack Kerouac and others, while a lot of time is focused on the uneasy relationship he had with Neal Cassady, as well as Carl Solomon, to whom Howl was dedicated. The third storyline creates a 50s poetry session with a young, awkward Ginsberg reading his new poem. While I don't have first-hand experience of the real thing, I certainly felt entranced by the atmosphere that these scenes created, and according to such critics as Roger Ebert, the recreated scenes are spot on in terms of recapturing the feel and look of these budding hipsters huddled together and listening to each other's work. But the best part of this movie by far, the part of the film that I remember first and foremost, is the fourth storyline that we follow. It's a series of animated sequences that follow several verses of Howl as narrated by Ginsberg via James Franco. Franco's reading of the poem is hypnotizing on its own, but the soundtrack and visuals work with said narration to make an extraordinary series of scenes that I hold among some of the best animation I've ever seen in a movie theater. The animated scenes and the scenes in the coffee house cover the whole poem bit by bit, even as we watch the trial and follow Ginsberg's coming to terms with himself and turning to poetry. Howl is a fascinating look at Allen Ginsberg's early life and the poem he is so well known for. I saw this movie last year in one of the few indie theaters left in Ottawa, and I wasn't disappointed in the slightest. If you haven't already, I recommend that you read Ginsberg's Howl, but you could also watch this film as an introduction to the poem and have it read to you with complimentary visuals. Of course, some of you will probably be offended by the poem's language, subject matter, and sexuality, both heterosexual and homosexual, but consider for a moment that you are at least allowed to read Howl the way Ginsberg wanted it to be released. And that in itself is a triumph of art.